Hey guys, glad you joined us today. Really looking forward to today's episode. Don't be afraid. Jesus gives you some really good reasons not to be.
Welcome to Everyday Truth with Kurt Skelly. We believe the Bible is true and relevant to everyone, everywhere, every day. If today's conversation is a help to you, take a moment to leave a review or share it with a friend. Thanks for listening. Now, let's join Kurt for today's episode.
Hey friends, welcome back. We're in Matthew chapter 10, and we're learning. We're learning how Jesus sent people and how nervous they must have been. Hey, don't take anything with you. You're ready. Trust me. It's going to be frightful, and some people won't listen, and there's bad things awaiting at some of these synagogues, but I don't want you to stop. I want you to keep on going, preach the truth. And he's just staying on this and giving them warnings and giving them encouragement. You're going to know exactly what to say. Trust God, the Spirit of God in you. I mean, it's a wonderful passage. And we find ourselves in verse number 21, where Jesus goes on to say to these 12, "And the brother shall deliver up the brother to death, the father the child. The children shall rise up against their parents, cause them to be put to death. Ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved." That doesn't mean, by the way, that you have to work out your own salvation from the standpoint of, well, God saved you, but you've got to work to keep it. The whole point is that saving faith is an enduring faith. And there are physical endurances and spiritual endurances, but it is our faith. Verse number 23, "And when they persecute you in the city, then flee to another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come." So let's stop there for a moment, just explain these verses. So obviously the gospel is going to be in some ways a great divider. And it is such an important message. And the message of Jesus is such an exclusive message that you are forced to take sides on one way or the other. You simply cannot be ambivalent about the message of Jesus. There's no middle ground. Either he is the way, the truth, and the life. Either he is the revealed Messiah, the Son of God, or he isn't. So either you reject him or you accept him, but there's no middle ground. There's no, well, he's just a good prophet. No, good prophets don't claim to be God, right? So there's no middle ground. So what Jesus said is the message of the gospel, as positive as it is, as good news as it is still going to be a great divider, because the implication of rejecting it is, I'm going to hell. The implication is, I've rejected God. And the implication of accepting it is that they are wrong and we are right. And so, wow, this message will be a great divider. It'll divide families. It'll cause conflict. It'll cause persecution. That's the teaching here. In fact, look at verse number 23. "And when they persecute you," I'm sorry, I read that. Verse number 24, "The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master, and the servant as his Lord. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, if they've called me the devil," said Jesus, "how much more shall they call them of his household?" So what is Jesus saying? Jesus is saying, I'm not asking you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I'm telling you that persecution is part and parcel to preaching the gospel and proclaiming the message of me. But understand that I will face those things as well and have. That I will suffer those things as well and will. And of course, we know that as Jesus went to the cross and suffered for all of us. And if they called me the devil, and they did, they said, "Oh, Jesus, we know how he casts out devils by the prince of devils. He is indwelt by Satan himself." And Jesus said, that's just an absurd comment. A house divided against itself cannot stand. The whole point was they made these wild accusations about Jesus. Don't be amazed. Don't be astonished when they make the same wild accusations about you. So persecution, expect it. if you're following Jesus, if you're following the footsteps of Jesus. In fact, the only time in the Bible the footsteps of Jesus and following the footsteps of Jesus is even mentioned is in 1 Peter chapter 2, where it talks about following the footsteps of Jesus in suffering. So Jesus said the servant is going to be like the master. That's a good indication that they are truly following me. Look at verse number 26. Fear them not, therefore. Oh, yes, they're going to do these things. They're going to threaten these things. They're going to follow through with some of these persecutions, but don't live your life in fear of them. Because knowing these things, what's your first reaction? Your first reaction is, well, I'm never going to preach the gospel again. I'm not going to be a missionary. I'm not going to go to Galilee. I'm not going to go to these places. I mean, if Jesus is saying all these things will happen, but I'm afraid. Now, obviously, there is going to be a natural human trepidation. And to feel fear is not wrong. It's not the feeling of fear that is wrong. It is allowing fear to be your primary counselor. It's acting upon fear's counsel that is wrong. So the Bible says here, fear them not, therefore, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. What I tell you in darkness, that speak ye in light. What ye hear in the ear, that preach ye upon the housetops. And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing? And one of them shall not fall to the ground without your Father, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear ye not, therefore. Ye are of more value than many sparrows. So Jesus says a lot here in response to don't fear, or to validate in their minds what it means not to fear. So how does Jesus deal with their potential fear? He deals with it in a couple ways. First of all, he says, hey, all the secret things one day will be known. Now, one day, all the persecutions and the things that we face for the Lord, it'll all be known. It'll be worth it. One day, all the plotting and the evil that people do against us, it'll be known. And God is the ultimate scorekeeper. So don't fear, because God is the ultimate scorekeeper. That's the first one. And then he says, don't fear the one that can only kill your body. Now, I know that our perspective is this human life. That's all we know is this physical world, what we can touch and see and hear and feel, and taste and smell. We apprehend the world by our physical senses. But Jesus said, no, there's far much more to your life than your body. There's your soul that will live forever. So don't fear that which can only harm you temporarily, but rather fear the God that controls eternity, who controls your own soul. So think eternally, not temporarily. Think eternally, not temporarily. God is keeping score. And then finally, he uses the argument of God knows sparrows face difficulty every day. They face a harsh world, and yet God takes notice of them. He cares for them. His eye is on the sparrow. I love the words of that song, but I can't stand the melody. If you like that song, good on you. I never want to hear it again, but I do like the words. If you want to give me the poem, that's great. But I love the truth. And the truth is, wow, God cares. He cares for you. So we don't need to fear. Why? Because our loving God cares for us. Our loving God is keeping score. And our loving God is much more frightful in judgment than some human counsel. So don't be afraid. What great advice. Let's just read a couple more verses here in closing. Verse number 32, whosoever therefore, talking about now, if you're not going to fear, then you're going to confess. If you're not going to fear, then you're going to own publicly your testimony for Christ. How do we do that? Well, verse 32, whosoever therefore shall confess me before men. That's a public testimony for Christ. Him will I confess also before my Father, which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. Think not that I am come to send peace on the earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. I come to set a man in variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. So what is Jesus saying? Jesus is saying, yes, the gospel draws lines. Yes, the gospel brings difficulty. It's not that Jesus wants it. It's a gospel of peace. But it's because people in their pride, in their arrogance, in their self-sufficiency are going to react viscerally against it. And some of you will be in the line of fire. Understand that all of that is going to happen, but don't be afraid. Take your stand for Jesus. Speak up for him boldly and publicly. That's going to be the evidence of a real faith. That's the one whom I identify with. The one that identifies with me is the one with whom I identify. So stand up for Jesus today. Don't be ashamed. Yeah, it might bring physical and temporary discomfort, but it's always worth it all in the long run. We're going to stop there in verse number 36, and next episode, we will complete the chapter, Lord willing. Hope you'll join us for that. Until then, God bless you, my friends.